Welcome to Radiant Health, how to create health from the inside out. I'm your host, Lori Waka, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today. I hope you're able to find a nice quiet place where you can sit back, take this all in, and just embrace the information. You never know, today might be the day that you hear exactly what you need to hear. And I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Janna Streibel. She is a life coach focusing on mental health and how to help people through transition. Janna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this summit.
Well, first, I just want to start by sort of building a foundation. What do you consider radiant health? What does that mean to you?
I have really been thinking about that, and I love the term radiant health because I think it encompasses so much more than what we often think of as health. When we think of health, we often think of physical health, weight, what we look like. But I feel like radiant health is so much more. It encompasses how we feel, what excites us, what makes us feel alive. I think radiant health is really how we live our lives, not just what we look like.
I agree. I definitely agree. And that's part of why I wanted to do this, just to share that with others. And there's so many different ways that we can promote radiant health within us. And so let's start with you, and how has your radiant health been a key to your success?
So I definitely have gone through, ups and downs with the radiant health, like I think everybody does. I have um, experienced deep valleys of anxiety and depression that I've had to learn how to navigate and how to really control that and not let it control me and design my life the way that works for me so that I can help those around me, so that I can focus on the people that love me and really spend the time that I want with my family and friends.
Mm, I like that, and I think, and I've done the same thing. Like I've had some valleys and some peaks, and it seems like if you are able to somehow not let the valleys be too low and the peaks not be too high, if you can kind of navigate that middle ground. And like you said, just for me, it's been learning to be present, really present when I am with my family. And I well, let's actually, I'll let you speak. How do you practice this for you on like a daily basis?
I love what you said just a minute ago was being present with your family. And that's one thing that I'm trying really hard is just to be where I am and not wish that it was different. So much of our lives, we think I should be doing this differently. This should look different. This should be different. And we waste where we're at right now. And so instead of trying to, you know, I believe that we should all try to make life better because why stay stuck somewhere? But I think that we can also go overboard. And so just being where we are and accepting that that's where I am right now, and that's okay. And it's good. And there's a reason that I am where I am. And even when it's hard times, there's a reason that you're there. And I wish I could remember. I actually read a quote the other day. It was from Lisa Turkist, the Christian writer.
Oh,
And she said that this bad time that you're going through can help someone else. And that's a paraphrase. She said it much better. But, that you have strength to offer to somebody else later on through your bad times.
and that's beautiful, and it's something that I think we don't necessarily think about. I know that I didn't really think about it until I went through what was a difficult time for me about 16, well, maybe 14 years ago. Just kind of three different losses, all within about a year's time. And it was reading a book about just miracles and but the point of the book was, though, that there is sometimes a lesson in there that is not obvious at all at the time, but if you just embrace it. And I think, and then I love how you put it, you could be helping someone else through your hardship. And if you look at it that way, if you're serving someone else, if you're serving others, it can take some of that pain away. At least it did for me. And I was able to look at the lesson that I got out of my situation. But and that's what I really like about what you're doing with your coaching, is that you are, focusing on mental health. It's something that we don't always talk about, and we don't always admit that we struggle with. And so I'm really glad that you're here to share, because I feel like there's people out there, and there's people watching who probably do struggle with anxiety, depression. Mental health can mean so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah.
And how would you say that working through your issues, and gaining this radiant health, how has this helped you grow?
Oh, I feel like I'm a completely different person. So I have always struggled with anxiety. I'm just more sensitive than most people, which is fine once I understood that that's what was going on. But then, like you, about 14 years ago, we had 5 deaths in my family in 4 years. And I built and moved a house. I was a librarian at the time and built and moved a library within the same year, which was not a good idea. So we had all of these changes, and I thought I was doing really good. And then, once things settled down and I could actually process everything that had happened, I kind of fell apart emotionally, mentally. And that's when everything started. The anxiety attacks every day, just trying to get through the day. But luckily, I had a good support system. My family was wonderful. My husband was very helpful, willing to listen, and willing to help walk through that with me. And my mother-in-law, I mean, just very, very blessed. But through that, I realized how much mental health matters and how much people don't talk about it. And you're just supposed to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and keep going, which I think there is a time for that. You don't want to wallow in that, but at the same time you have to take care of yourself, and there's a fine balance, and it's really hard to find sometimes. And that's where I think a good coach can really help, as far as helping you to understand where you're at and what steps you can take to help move forward, and what steps you can take to maybe just sit in it for a little while and understand this is the like I said earlier, this is the time in life that I'm in, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be any different. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's. This is where I'm at. And I feel like with Facebook and Instagram and all of that stuff nowadays, which is they're wonderful tools to stay connected, but we often don't see the truth of what's going on with people. It's the good things, which is fun to see, but we need to understand that that's not all of life. Not everyone is happy all of the time. It's just not possible. And we wouldn't really know what happiness is if we didn't have the down times.
That is such a good point. And you brought up exactly something I was going to mention about social media. And I agree with you. I think it's a great way to stay connected, and especially for family and friends who are across the country from one another. But like you said, what we generally see are the reels of the best parts of people's lives. And it can get so easy to play that comparison game. And oh, why, I've been working this long or this hard. Why am I not achieving what she's achieved? Or, how come my family's not as happy as hers? What you think is, but really all you're looking at is what it looks like. And
Yeah.
and that's something I think that we don't realize, that well, I shouldn't say nothing, but generally speaking, it's not what it seems to be, like what we have created it in our minds.
Yeah.
And that can be actually what the stories we put in our minds can be regarding anything, for
That's
sure.
so true. It's the things that we tell ourselves is the truth of what's going on. And it makes a difference of the things that we tell ourselves. And that's a huge thing that I always work with when I work with people. And one thing that's been the biggest difference in my own life is, what are the things that I'm telling myself? Pay attention to your thoughts and the things that are going through your mind, because I can guarantee you, if you're having a panic attack, you were telling yourself something negative 15 to 20 minutes earlier. And it's following those back to that. What were you telling yourself? That you're not good enough, that you can't do this, that, whatever that bad thought was, you can follow that back. And I, I always have something going on in my mind. Like Lori said earlier, I have 3 boys, and we were having a conversation at dinner a few months ago, and they made the comment that they can think about nothing, and I was shocked.
What?
Like, you can think about nothing. Like my husband and all the boys, they're like, yeah, you just do this. I'm like, there's 10 things going through my mind in that amount of time. Like, how?
Yes,
But some people really can think about nothing, and they can just, I can't. There's
that's
always something going on in
amazing.
my mind.
Oh, me too.
And yeah. And I think
Me
that's
too.
true for most women. I think that because we have so many moving parts to our own lives, keeping work, home, social life, all of these things, there's always something going on. But I have learned that I really have to pay attention to what I'm telling myself, because it affects so much of how I feel and then what I do. And so that's probably my one thing that I really focus on. And I tell people, what are you telling yourself? What are you paying attention to? Because that's what we have control over. Facebook might be telling us that we have to have the perfect family. But if we can tell ourselves, you know what, that's 1 minute. That was one fun minute. We didn't see the temper tantrum the 2-year-old had before they took that picture.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
we didn't see the messy diaper that, exploded all over. That's one moment. And so I've actually, kind of, when I look at Facebook or Instagram, I just tell myself that's one moment, and I'm grateful that they had that moment, and I'm grateful that they shared with me. And then I can move on, and it doesn't affect me in the sense that I have to look like that. My family has to look like that. Um, that, looking at it in gratitude instead of comparison totally changes the way that you interact with social media.
Wow, that's so powerful. And just I love how you put it, looking at it in gratitude. And that's just because being grateful, like, and every day I practice that every day. It's something I do, is going through what I'm grateful for in the morning. It's kind of part of like a meditation exercise I go through. And
Mhm.
it just changes, it kind of changes you from that, like that scarcity mindset to a more abundant mindset. And I totally agree with what you're saying about all of the things that we put in our head. And one thing I started doing at the end of my day, because I never realized it until it was brought to my attention, was that at the end of the day, I was going through all of the things I should have done better, I could have done better. What if I did it this way? What if I did it that way? And someone brought it to my attention that at the end of the day, what if you went through all of the things you did right? and
Oh,
and what a difference that makes. And honestly, I don't always remember to do that. Sometimes that reel starts because I'm just like you. I've got all these thoughts going through my head. And it's hard sometimes to be conscious of, okay, purposefully thinking about all the positive things that happened or that you did during the day.
and we're genetically programmed to think about the negative, because that's what kept our ancestors alive. They had to be able to see um, what harm was coming, what threats. So we're genetically programmed to see the negative, but that doesn't mean that we have to stay that way. And we can change, just like I love your gratitude practice in the morning. I am not a good morning person. And so I have been working on that, of being more grateful for waking up, for being able to get up out of bed and that kind of thing. And I think that that can make such a difference. And just understanding why our bodies do different things helps to, like the genetic of being prone to negativity. Understanding that can help us to deal with that so we don't have to stay that way.
Wow, that's what a good point, because it's something that I mean, it makes complete sense. Like you said, that's our ancestors had to do that. But it's something like I don't even think about now. It's like, why is it in our, DNA to be worried about what could possibly happen? But for almost my whole life, that's all I did was worry about what could possibly go wrong instead
Mm-hmm.
of not instead of just being present and in the now and just breathing through it.
Yeah.
And something else that you mentioned earlier about and you said it much better than I'll be able to repeat it back. But I think what you were saying is to sit with it, like when we're in our, maybe anxiety or feeling that anxiety or maybe that depression. If we sit with it, is that a way of just embracing those emotions, kind of, and just like not being down on yourself for feeling those emotions? Is that right?
Yeah. So, and this sounds so wrong, because when we're feeling bad, we want to feel better, right?
Right.
And we want to do whatever we can to feel better. But if you're in the middle of an anxiety attack, and this has taken me years to understand, and I'm still not very good at it, because when those feelings start coming up, the first thing you want to do is push them away. You don't want to have them. You don't want to deal with them. It's not fair. I've been doing this for 15 years and I should be better than this. Those are all my thoughts that start coming up as soon as I start feeling that. But the problem with pushing them away is it makes them bigger. And because then not only are you dealing with the anxiety, you're dealing with the anger, maybe that you're having the anxiety attack, you're dealing with a disappointment that you're not better yet, which then brings on a whole other question of what is better. What
That's true.
and but that's another topic. But so then you have all of these other feelings that are coming up with the anxiety. And one thing that I learned that I'm trying to practice is bring it on. You haven't killed me yet, so let me just feel this. But while I'm feeling this, I'm going to go get my work done. So sitting with it doesn't necessarily mean sitting there and just wallowing in it.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding this is something that I'm going to feel, but I don't have to fight it. So I'm just going to let it flow through me, because actually, if you let it flow through you, those feelings will only last for about 90 seconds if you
Really?
don't fight. Yeah, which is amazing. I told somebody this, one of the girls at church, and she just about died. She's like, I've had anxiety attacks that last all day. Yeah, me too, sister. But that's because we're fighting it. Those feelings, those chemicals in our brain will only last 90 seconds if we just let it go through and let those feelings work through you. So instead of and one thing that works really well for me, and I know is key for a lot of people, is to get moving.
I'm sorry, to
So
get what?
to get moving.
Oh,
So
okay.
when those feelings start, you just understand, I'm going to feel like this, and it's okay. It's just part of who I am, and it's not going to kill me. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go do something. So if you can, stand up, walk around. If you can't, tap your finger on the desk. Jiggle your leg, as long as you're not jiggling a whole row of people. you know,
Right.
just something to move that gives your mind something else to focus on.
Oh,
And so that's why I think that the fidget spinners and that kind of thing were so popular for a while, just because it gives your mind something else to focus on. And I actually have a ring that's just a wire ring that I got from Amazon, actually. And so I can just roll it up and down my finger, and it has the way that it's bent, it just has pokies on it. And so then that gives me something else, when I'm at work or when I need to stay sitting, that movement can help me focus on something else so those feelings can flow through me.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And it makes sense. I never, again, I never thought about it, but it makes, first of all, I had no idea only 90 seconds. Of course,
Right?
when you're going through it, 90 seconds is a long time, but compared to having it last for hours so it's kind of like that. What is it? What resists persists.
Hmm.
So when you try to resist something, you're actually almost attracting it to you. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah, because it brings up so many other feelings, because then you're pushing it away. And when you push something away, you're not giving it positive feelings. You're giving it negative feelings. So you have more negative emotions coming up.
whew, and then it just all just almost like
Snowball.
snowballs, right?
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
gosh. Well, that's that. So I was going to ask you, like, what a valuable tip or an actionable tip could be, but that right there, is like, I think, huge. But what if you had like one major thing to share to help somebody who's dealing with anxiety or depression, um, something that's actionable that they could start today working on to help them kind of get through that feeling?
Oh, definitely. Um, One thing that's actionable is getting those feelings out. And it can be talking to someone. If you're not at that step yet, which I think is a huge step, and it's a difficult step for a lot of people because we don't talk about it. When I post about my suicidal thoughts, when I talk about anxiety and things like that, people won't comment on the post, but they'll message me individually because they don't want other people to know what
Yeah.
they're feeling. So it might be talking to someone, finding someone safe. But it might be writing down what you're feeling. Uh, I feel personally, if I can just get it out of my head and quit focusing on it, that I can kind of let it go. I forget about that negative thought. So writing about it, art therapy is huge, 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 huge. That doesn't mean you have to be an artist
Okay.
to do art
I was.
therapy. Um, and as a perfectionist, it's sometimes hard to do it because it doesn't look perfectly. Um, but I've just recently started doing watercolors, which is really nice because it doesn't have to look perfect. It's more, um, kind of abstract. So it's okay if the lines aren't straight. It's okay if things look a little bit off, because that's the way it's supposed to look. So just finding an outlet, working out, that one is a huge one too. The exercising actually has the same rate of effectiveness for curing depression as antidepressants. So
Really?
yeah, and I know it's really hard to do when you're depressed, to get out of bed. Like I spent years with my boys sitting on me as I laid on the couch watching TV with them. So I understand how hard that is. But any movement that you can do boosts the serotonin in our brains. And that's what we need when we're feeling depressed. So movement is huge.
And that's the kind of thing too, where like it could just be like you said, if you can just get yourself up just to walk across the house, even
Yes.
just that can start that movement.
Yeah,
uh,
just the cascade of good chemicals in your brain, and just knowing that you got up and moved. Okay, well, let me put a couple of dishes in the dishwasher while I'm up. So now you've accomplished two things. You've been able to move across the room, you've put some dishes in, and it starts a positive cascade instead of that negative cascade.
and I would think that, and even though maybe you're not aware of it, is there like subconsciously you realize you're starting to show up for yourself? Is
Okay,
that
I love how you said that. Showing up for yourself. Um, that that kind of sets me on fire because it's so important. Like, um, I feel like we're taught how to hide ourselves a lot and how to just be what we think other people want to be. And that's one thing that I still am working through personally. And I think that's something that I'll be working on forever, just because uncovering who I really am and how I want to show up for me. Like, what is it that you need? And this is kind of a silly example, but last night we were watching a movie that I wasn't really interested in. And so I was really bored, but I wanted to spend time with my family because we're all together. And so I just simply went and got one of my wireless earbuds and started listening to a book on my phone. And that's a simple way to show up for myself, because then I was still spending time with my family, but I was doing something that was more interesting to me. And so that time felt more a time for me that I could show up for myself. So it can be little things. It doesn't mean that you have to completely change your life and move to Italy and start a winery.
Right.
That's not exactly it. It's the little things of showing up for ourselves and being authentic to who we are and how we feel in the moment, and not being afraid of those feelings.
Oh, what a good way to put it. I kind of have an example myself. Like I was recently talking to someone, and it came out that I wasn't showing up for myself. And my first thought was, but I work hard, and I run a business, and I have a part-time job, and I believe I show up for my family. So in my head, I'm like doing all these things that I'm showing up for. And so I couldn't understand, or I didn't really understand, what this means. But just through talking with her, it was coming out that like I wasn't showing up for me. And just like you said, just takes just a little something that you're doing for yourself. Or because you said earlier too, something that I think is important to note about how sometimes we play small and don't realize it.
Uh-huh.
We don't realize it. And playing big can be scary, especially if you're consciously aware that you want to try to play big. If you're not aware of it, then it may not happen because you're not quite there yet. But I believe we tend to play small and not show up for ourselves unless we are aware of it and we're consciously.
I agree. And I think another thing is, we think that we set a goal and we have a plan and it's going to be easy. We see these other people that are out succeeding and doing all these things that we want to do. Well, that's because their parents had money. That's because they went to a better university. That's because, XYZ. And I was actually listening to Business Made Simple, and I can't think of the author's name right now, but he says, running your own business is like running uphill, pushing a rock all of the time. It's not easy. And so understanding that the things that we want to do aren't always going to be easy. Showing up for yourself isn't always going to be easy. Telling your family, I don't want to do this because I need this, isn't always easy. But you know what their answer is going to be? Okay.
It's so true.
Yes. 99% of the time, it's not going to be a big deal. But it's hard. At first, it gets easier. But understanding that everybody struggles, and it goes back to that Facebook thing. We see that it's easy on Facebook, so why isn't it easy for me? Well, it's not really. That's just what we see.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it, because you're right. And there's always a reason, like you said, that person grew up with money, or that person, has a great income or whatever. But there's just so many other layers that we don't realize. And once, we take responsibility for ourselves, then then
Yes.
it's
'Cause it's easy to say, it's easy to let ourselves off the hook because we don't have these things. So then I don't have to try.
yeah.
Well, you know, they weren't given this seat. And um I know not everybody loves Trump. So hopefully this doesn't go the wrong way. But years and years ago, this was 25-ish years ago, Ivanka Trump was on Jay Leno talking about her life and things like this, and why. And Jay Leno asked, this is in the day of Paris Hilton being popular
Oh,
and
yeah,
Nicole Richie and all this.
I remember.
And he says, why are you not um, off making sex tapes and just living crazy life and things like this? And he says, you grew up the same way. And she says, well, my dad made it very clear to us when we were children that yes, we had a privileged life, but that money was his money, and there was going to be an end to it. If we wanted to have the life that he has, there were certain steps that we had to take. We had to go to college, we had to do these things. And she said, now granted, I had a lot of doors open to me because of the money. And so she was very clear with her life. But I just loved that there was some responsibility there for them.
Yeah,
And we need to make that responsibility for ourselves. So
that's right. No, that's a good point about that, about making responsibility for ourselves. And I was watching a show the other day. I can't even think of the name of it, but it was about can't think of it. But people paying for cruises on yachts, and there were two teenage boys who had very rich parents, and you could just, he seemed very respectful, very gracious, but the other one seemed very much like not enough is being done for me. And it was just so interesting to watch these two boys who assumably are being raised the same way, but one was very much taking I don't want to say he was in service to other people, but he just seemed to be very gracious for what he had, or grateful for what he had. And then the other one seemed very much like, like, you guys aren't doing enough for me, and we paid good money to be on this boat, and just kind of that attitude. And so it really is up to us how we want to work with our lives, serve other people, be grateful for whatever we have, whatever we've been given, or whether it's good or bad.
I love how you said work with our lives. We're all in different situations, and we're all given different good things and bad things. How are we going to work with those? How are we going to make it work for us?
Yes. I agree. You can have two people grow up in the same family with completely different outcomes. And I have examples of that too, but
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You've given so much, just such valuable information. And, I feel like we could go on about this. There's so many different important things about mental health. But I want to make sure to include, I know you've been very gracious in offering a free gift. So I want to give you an opportunity just to tell us a little bit about what you're offering. And I will make sure to have the link on the email that I send out with this interview.
So we are offering a free session, just to kind of see where you're at, what you're feeling, how I can help, and how we can work together. And you can follow me on Your Amazing Journey on Facebook, or Janna Streibel is my personal page. But for the good stuff, follow my business page.
And I will be sure to include those links. And you you were mentioning the consultation if somebody is interested. Is that?
Yes. So it's an hour consultation, and we can. And I know it sounds like just how we can work together, but really, my goal whenever I meet with anyone is that they have at least 2 action steps that they can take and put into practice in their lives when they're done. So it's a consultation to see if we work well together, but it's also a first step in how you can start moving forward in your life and whatever process or change or life situation that you're in.
Oh, that's so nice. That sounds really nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And before we go, is there anything else you would like to share or anything I may have missed?
Um, I think the most important that that I have learned and really that I try to put into practice in my life is that it's your life and it's your choice. What the things that you do make a difference for yourself, and you're the one that has control over your life. And um, I always hated that. My mom used to always tell us, we'd run to her when one of the siblings made us mad. And, oh, he just makes me so mad. And my mom would say, he didn't make you mad. You chose to be mad.
Oh,
And I hated that until I became a mother, and then I used it on my own kids. But yeah, our life is it's our choice. And we can have horrible things happen to us, but it's really our choice and how we want to deal with it. And I know I've lived a very good life, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the things that I've learned. But I've also learned that I have to take some responsibility for my life. And if I want it to improve, then I need to take that and make it different.
that's such a powerful message. And I probably need to work on teaching that to my children more, because if you know one thing or learn one thing, just knowing that, like you said, in my opinion, every event that happens to us or in our life, we do have that choice of what we make of it, and whether we make it into something positive or something that absolutely debilitates us. And then, like you said, with your kids, if they're fighting or something happens, we have a choice how we can react to somebody else's behavior. And
And I think it's Joel Osteen that says, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And it's just in how you look at it.
yep, absolutely, I agree with that. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your wisdom.
This
Really
is so
appreciate it.
fun.
Yeah, I had fun too. I'm so glad that you were here. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. So glad you took some time out today to spend some time with us and learn some more about what you can do to help yourself through anxiety and depression and whatever might be what you're working through. And I look forward to tomorrow. So we will see you here tomorrow. Thanks, Janna.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks. Bye bye.